Here. Oh, yeah. Okay, great. So, Nishant, now we are starting the panel discussion. Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. So, whether it is morning, I think, Chris, it is morning for you, afternoon or evening in your part of the world, I hope you all are having a wonderful day. A warm welcome to this important panel discussion on predatory publishing. You know, predatory publishing involves unethical and deceptive practices by certain publishers, journals, or conferences exploiting the academic publishing process for profit. Predatory publication is a threat and leads to loss of trust in academic publishing. We must engage in discussion and raise awareness to protect academia from this threat. Today's discussion is brought to you by the Indian National Young Academy of Sciences, New Delhi, and DST, Center for Policy Research, Bangalore, as part of our ongoing efforts in this direction. So we are conducting a year-long project named as Rescue, and this is one of the activity under that project that we have organized today. My name is Kutubuddin Mullah, and I am a member of the Indian National Young Academy of Science, New Delhi, and I also work as a scientist at National Rice Research Institute at Odisha, India. I want to express our deep gratitude to our esteemed panelists for today's discussion, Dr. Chris Graf, who is the Director, Research Integrity Springer Nature, Dr. Diksha Gupta, who is also the Director of Global Strategy for Society Program from the American Chemical Society, ACS, and Sarah Jenkins, who is the Director of Research Integrity and Publication Ethics from Elsevier. So thank you very much for taking your time out from your very busy schedule and helping us to organize this panel discussion. And for your information, this program is also being live streamed at INYAS YouTube channel. And without further delay, let me request Nishant Chakraborty, who is the chair of INYAS, to briefly introduce INYAS to the panelists and the audience. Over to you, Nishant.
Thank you so much, Kutub. And I also welcome everyone to this panel discussion. A warm welcome to Chris, Sarah, and Diksha, especially for being a part of this panel discussion. I have a quick presentation as well about INYAS, so I hope I can share my slides here. If you can just allow, just give me a moment. Yeah, I hope it is visible.
It's coming. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so as Kutub already mentioned, the Indian National Young Academy of Science is a vibrant and dynamic platform that was established by Indian National Science Academy in December 2014 with a vision to promote science education and foster networking amongst young scientists in India. Since its inception, INYAS has embarked on an incredible journey marked by experience, learning, and numerous achievements. Initially started with the 20 young scientists as the founding member, INYAS has presently grown into a community of 116 dedicated members actively contributing to its objectives across various scientific disciplines, which include majority of the scientific disciplines known to us. In fact, in the recent general body meeting held in February 2024, we welcomed 30 new members from diverse scientific backgrounds, further enhancing the organization's talent pool and expanding its reach. Notably, we have maintained a strong commitment towards gender balance as well, this time especially with 11 female members and 19 male members getting selected from across the country, reflecting its inclusive and diverse ethos. INYAS's activities encompass a wide range of initiatives aimed at science outreach, education, training, and collaboration. The Academy organizes workshops, webinars, scientific meetings, and training programs for young scientists while also engaging in impactful outreach activities such as science awareness camps, remote area lectures, and collaborations with local communities to promote scientific literacy and inclusivity. INYAS's flagship events include Prayojan, RU Setup, and Wisdom Series, which underscored its dedication to fostering scientific inquiry and collaboration. Additionally, the scientific community also hosts various competitions and initiatives. I would just like to show you a glimpse of the kind of activities that we perform under RU setup, where we bring together a lot of people from the rural community, especially teachers. And these are some of the activities that have happened over the last few years at various places in India. Then this is the wisdom activity, which is specially focusing on women scientists across our country, uh, and this has been also happening over the last few years. We also do a lot of activities related to gender inclusiveness. Then also regarding the Prayojan initiative, which is regarding the making people aware of the postdoctoral uh, opportunities that are available across the country and globally. We also do a lot of capacity building programs like science capacity building efforts, awareness workshops across the country as well. Then outreach activities, which include remote area lectures, science awareness camps, pan India science outreach and training programs. We also conduct some specifically targeted towards a core group of scientific community, which includes the National Frontiers of Science meeting, as happened in the last 2 to 3 years. We also conduct technical symposiums in the form of media meetings for INYAS community and also other members of the young Indian scientists. Uh, we are also interested in focusing towards science policy and decision making through different types of activities that we are conducting. Then we are also working on several white papers which help in policy making, voicing students' concerns at national levels, and providing adequate database for multidimensional changes. Over the During the pandemic years, we have also focused on certain activities which focus on impact of COVID-19 on PhD students, then fostering education and curiosity drives, and fundamental research in India. Some of our papers have already been published as well, as you can see. We have also worked towards open science initiatives, like the publication that you see towards your left. We're collaborating with various ministries, including the Ministry of Youth Affairs. During the G20 S20 summit last year, which was hosted by India, we did several activities through our government's initiatives as well. So, as INYAS is celebrating its journey and its achievements it remains dedicated to its core values, uh, and the Academy's future endeavors aim to further amplify the impact, especially in rural and remote areas, contributing positively to society and advancing the frontiers of science and technology. Last year, INYAS also received this grants from Indian Academy of Partnership, which includes this rescue program. One of the activities of this rescue program is what we are having today. And then there is another project on science diplomacy as well, which is towards your right. That is also a part where INYAS is leading. So INYAS also expresses its gratitude towards INSA for its support and acknowledgement, for its efforts towards, and also to, of course, its members, the core committee, and partners in driving forward its mission. So, with a vision for continued growth and excellence and societal impact, INYAS is poised to lead the way in science communication, outreach, and collaboration for the betterment of our society and the scientific community at large. With these few words, I would like to welcome all of you one more time and thank you for the rescue team for hosting this very important initiative. Over to you, Kutub.
Oh, thank you, Nishant. I think that was a huge 10 years work you just completed in five minutes. So that was really difficult. I understand. Okay, so now it's time to give you a glimpse of the rescue project for which we have, arranged this meeting, a panel discussion briefly, and then we would go to directly to the panel discussion. Okay, so yeah, this acronym stands for. Uh, can you see my slide? Hello. Hello.
Still
Yeah,
not
it's
visible.
Not?
No.
It's not yet visible.
Mhm. And my screen is frozen, so I'm trying to resolve the issue. Ananda, can you just remove me? Can you remove me? I can rejoin if you can hear me.
So you won't be able to join back in if I remove you.
Oh, okay. But I don't know what I will.
If it helps, you can share the PPT to any of us and we can share it from.
My total screen is, even I'm trying to, screen is frozen. I don't know, it never happens to me. Let me try.
So we have to do some rescue.
Shipana, why don't you take over for a while Kutub is trying to set it up? If you can just maybe at least informally initiate the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, before Kutub starts, by that time, let me just uh, discuss so basically why today we are doing this meeting with the publisher, because we feel that the role of publisher in curbing predatory publications cannot be overstated, because we feel that the publishers serve as the gatekeepers, and they are very much responsible for rigorously evaluating the quality of the manuscript and the integrity of the submitted manuscripts. Okay, so we can say like they are acting as guardians of knowledge dissemination, and publishers, actually we feel that they hold a crucial responsibility in upholding the standard of ethical publishing practices. So, for this reason, actually, today we have representatives from three global publishers. So, we all know the names of like American Chemical Society, Springer Nature, and Elsevier. So, we are very glad that today we have representatives from three big houses publishers. And again, like already our chair Nishant and Kutub have already welcomed our guests, but still I also welcome you all to this panel discussion. And as we have time, so I feel let me introduce our panelists, today's panelists. So, okay, so Sarah, I'm seeing Sarah first. So let me start with Sarah Jenkin, who is the Director of Research Integrity and Publishing Ethics at Elsevier. Sarah and her team promote research integrity through policies, best practices, and education, and support Elsevier's publishing teams and editors to investigate and resolve ethics cases, and work with experts across Elsevier to build tools and develop processes to detect unethical practices during the manuscript submission and peer review process. So Sarah began her career, publishing career specifically, at Elsevier, working with editors and learned societies in health and medical sciences. And then later she joined the physical sciences group as a publishing director, where she focused on open access and open science through initiatives that promoted the deposition of code and software, and established links between original research articles and data journals. And then we have Chris Gruff with us. So Chris is the Research Integrity Director at Springer Nature. He has a long-standing commitment to excellence in research publishing, research integrity, and open research. So Chris is the chair of the governance board of the STM Integrity Hub and the STM Research Integrity Committee, member of the World Conference on Research Integrity Program, and he is also the member of the UKRI UK Committee on Research Integrity. And our third panelist is none other than Dr. Diksha Gupta. So Diksha leads a global strategy for society program office at the ACS. So basically, her office is responsible to grow, nurture, and empower global scientific community with special emphasis on Asia Pacific, Middle East, Africa, Latin, and Mexico. Prior taking this global responsibility, Diksha was responsible for development and implementation of ACS India's strategy. She has extensive experience in building programs, products, and partnerships. Her core expertise is ideation, prototyping, and scaling for global communities. She has been serving on various national and international committees, platforms related to science communication, skill and career development, and partnerships. Diksha joined American Chemical Society in 2016 as the first international managing editor for a global open access journal, ACS Omega, based from India. She also represented all ACS journals in India and developed strategic partnerships of the ACS with different high profile organizations of the government of India. And she believes in think global and act local. And she practices it daily for ACS's sustained growth in India. So with this introduction, INYAS welcome all our three esteemed panelists of today's program. And if Kutub has joined, then I'm so handing over this session to Kutub for rescue introduction, and then again we will come back to listen from our esteemed guest. Kutub.
Yeah. Thank you, Sripana. Sorry, all of you. But it never happened to me, but I do not know why it is this time. I think it is visible now to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much for your patience and for the technical glitches. I must apology. So, before going into the project, briefly in 2 to 3 slides, I want to set the tone here. So, we are facing a pandemic in our academia due to this predatory publishing because it disseminates false information, not a standard data, and it is a deceptive practices, and it wastes a lot of resources because it does not have any quality control. Okay, and it also causes erosion of trust in academia and especially in science, and it also causes bad research being freely accessible to the public, as you have witnessed during the COVID-19. Okay, so this is really pandemic that we are facing, and how this pandemic is growing, and there is no sign to stop. As you can see here, in 2010 it was only 53,000 articles, and it grows an estimated 787,000 in 2022. This is about articles, but if you see the predatory journals number, this is a data from two different publications. One in 2014, it was only 8,000 journals. Now it became more than 15,000, so it's almost became double. An estimated USD 393 million has gone to the pockets of those publishers, and it has not helped the advancement of sciences. So you can see the huge impact what it is causing this predatory publishing landscape. So if you see, this is also unfortunate that this predatory publishing, predatory journals are also being enlisted in legitimate index like Scopus. And between 2015 to 2017, as per one analysis, the 324 journals which are listed in Bell's list of predatory journals has also been indexed in Scopus, and they published 164,000 articles. And you can see this is really going to be a problem in future also, because they will infiltrate into the mainstream. Okay, and if you see the vulnerable region, especially in Asia and North Africa, Arab and oil-rich countries, the academicians from these areas, they are more vulnerable to those predatory publishers. And if you see, this is an unfortunate slide. I always intend not to show, but I have to show. This is the fact. Countries with highest number of publications in predatory journals, India at the top. And this is a data from 2018 paper. And if you see the location of predatory publishing journals, it is not that claimed location, it is a traced location as per their IP. And it is also occupied majority of them from India. So that's why people sometimes consider India as a hub of predatory publishing. So why do authors publish in predatory journals? There are several reasons identified by earlier researchers, but those would be discussed in the panel. I'm not going into the details, but there are recent phenomena of awareness. A lot of awareness is going on. As you can see, these are the two snapshots of two websites that give you an easy, if you just put the URL in these two websites, they will tell you whether they are suspected predatory journals or not. So as you see, this is also a very nice initiative, that Think, Check, and Submit initiative. Or before submitting, whether you're submitting to a predatory journal or not, you can go through this website. And there are certain lists also, like Bell's list, as you know, the famous Bell's list that listed all the predatory journals, standalone journals, and the publishing houses. And then updated list, international list, Cable's list came. And an Indian initiative is from University Grants Commission. They have also listed, white and black listed journals like UGC Care. So, but this awareness is a recent phenomenon, and abundant task ahead, a lot of things to do. So keeping in mind all these kind of things, we have joined hand to hand with the Young Academy of Bangladesh, Benin, and Czech Republic to form this consortium. And we named this consortium as Roadmap to Improve Ethics in Science and Curb Predatory Publishing, abbreviated as RESCUE. So if you see, our team consists of, as you all know, most of them are here. So Momita is from DST CPR, Siparna from IIMT, Rajan from IIT Delhi, Tariq from Bangladesh, Teroja from Czech Republic, Victoria from Benin, and also Narendra Mehra from our Senior Academy, Indian National Science Academy. So we all are partner in this team. So our common goal of RESCUE is, in one hand, to curb predatory publishing by different methods, as mentioned here, and also in another hand, to improve ethics in science. And our team will work on these four major headings. One is understand the root cause of falling prey to predatory houses by collecting data directly from the researchers, and engage with the stakeholders and policymakers, and organize different meetings, especially international workshop, to disseminate all findings to young researchers, and also prepare documents and some toolkits to devise strategies or recommendation to address this issue to the end user. And to this goal, so we have recently, these are two recent activities that I'm showing. We have recently organized this webinar where we collaborated with Bangladesh to get this webinar and strategies for combating predatory publishing practices. We had representative from UGC Care and one from Bangladesh. And if you see, this is a preliminary analysis that we have done, Momita has done from our team. that this is, you can see the awareness is increasing. Okay, so we have searched with the phrase predatory publishing as a key term within the title or abstract of a published documents. And if you compare, in 2011 it was only one, but in 2023 it became 105. So it is more than 1,000 articles are there in the literature that is on predatory publishing. That's the kind of awareness increasing. Okay, so in this direction, so we have organized this panel discussion today, and I hope that we would get a lot of insights from the three directors, from the three big commercial houses of scientific publishing. And thank you very much. Over to you, Sriparna.
Yeah, thank you, Kutub, for giving us a brief description about rescue program. And now we would like to hear about from our esteemed guest. So I will start with Chris. Is it okay, Chris? Okay, great. So you can unmute, and you have 10-minute slots. It's fine. You can take it as 8+2, or you can finish 10 minutes and then we can come to questions later on, as you wish.
Thank you.
So
That's
can I
fine.
come in between?
Yeah.
So I think if we go for 10 minutes, then we would not be able to finish on time. So would you mind if I request to limit it maybe within 8 minutes? Is it okay, Chris?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do what you need, and very happy to be here.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for the invitation and for the really interesting presentations that you just gave. Just working out how to share my slides. Not very good at this. So tell me, can you see
Yes,
see my
it's
slides right now?
visible. Yes.
You can. That's great. All right. Now maybe I'll try and make them big. No, wrong link. Slideshow. There you go. Now are they really big?
Yes.
Yes.
Terrific. All right. So I'm going to do a short then 8-minute presentation about doing the right thing. And we'll talk about predatory practices along the way and publishers' response to those predatory practices. But I'm going to start by talking about researchers. Because I love researchers. I love the work that researchers do. And I really want to support and enable researchers to do great practices and to avoid the pitfalls of the poor practices. So the story begins with researchers, as it always should. Researchers who do the right thing. And if you look up the Retraction Watch website, a blog website, a media website, you can see a category of work that they report on there where researchers have done the right thing and retracted some work that contained an honest error and an honest mistake. And we need to celebrate that and remember that researchers try their best to do the right thing, and sometimes things go wrong, and then they need to publish retractions. These researchers could be early career researchers like Susanna Stoll at the Department of Experimental Psychology in University College at London, who is an early career researcher, who was an early career researcher. She's no longer an early career researcher. She's a mid-career researcher now. She found some error in some coding in one of her highly cited articles and did the right thing by working out what went wrong and publishing a retraction. That's an early career researcher. How about a mid-career researcher? This is Nicola Smith, a molecular pharmacologist in Australia, who found that lab reagents and protocols followed in a number of the papers published out of her lab were also wrong, and went through great personal efforts to correct those, to identify the problems and then to retract the papers. So Nicola Smith, like Susanna Stoll, is a research hero. She did the right thing. That was an early career researcher, a mid-career researcher. What about a Nobel Prize winner? This is Frances Arnold, who won half of the 2018 Nobel Prize for her work on the evolution of enzymes. She did the right thing as well. She didn't retract the Nobel Prize winning paper, of course. That stands and is all good. She retracted one of her other chemistry papers and again did the right thing. So there are examples of researchers from across the career spectrum, from early through mid to peak science, all embracing honest errors and retracting papers, and we should applaud those efforts. But of course, there are people and organizations who did not do the right thing. And that's what the next couple of slides are about, things that are absolutely not the right thing. In fact, predatory practices, starting with paper mills. Adjacent to predatory journals, perhaps, but paper mills make fake articles like the one on the left, or they might even recruit real articles reporting real science, but they're definitely not. They are definitely bad actors in the system. What they do is they sell authorship to scientists who didn't contribute to the science. Well, maybe it's made up science or fake science, but scientists who didn't contribute to the science if it's real science. They sell authorship to those scientists, and they sell authorship multiple times. And then they place a fake guest editor into a position of power in a journal, and that fake guest editor pretends to be a real scientist but isn't, conducts fake peer review, and hacks the publisher's quality control systems to ensure that those papers get published. That's what a paper mill does. It's doing the opposite of a good thing. It's doing a very bad thing, undermining science by publishing articles like this that really make no sense at all. And maybe that's a problem, right? But maybe it's not as much a problem as an article that looks like it might make sense, but actually doesn't and is fake. So this is a real fake article that has now been retracted that conjoins the strange concepts of earthquake activity, whatever an embedded system might be, and then physical fitness detection in basketball together. It's clearly ridiculous, right? And it was embarrassing for the publisher who had to retract this paper. It should be embarrassing for the authors who bought authorship positions on that paper, but it's worse than that for the paper mills. They should be ashamed of the work that they do, and should, because it destroys credibility in science, and we really need to shut them down. In fact, publishers and publishing is doing a lot to shut down paper mills, and you can help. You can avoid using them. You can tell people when you see them in action. Here's what publishing is doing to shut down the paper mills, although I'm not telling the whole story here because there's much more than fit on the next 3 slides. So this is the growth rate in research that was published for about the last 10 years. And you can see a sort of a roughly steady line with a peak around the COVID years. Now I'm going to overlay on that the growth rate of retractions published over the last 10 years. And you can see the growth rate follows the same sort of line until about 2021, when it starts to tick up. And that's when publishers realized there was a problem and did the right thing and started to publish thousands of retractions of paper milled articles. In fact, last year, publishers published more than 10,000 retractions for those paper milled articles. And the message to the paper mills is we have no tolerance for this. When we find out that you've done bad things, predatory things, we are going to act, and we're going to retract those publications. The message is for the authors, the scientists who bought those paper milled papers, is the same. But wouldn't it be better if publishers hadn't published them in the first place? Yes, of course it would. And I know that many publishers are doing everything they can to prevent publishing new paper mill papers in the first place. Here's a brief look at the publishing workflow from submit, where an author submits an article to a journal or a publisher, through quality control checks, which happen at various places in this along the workflow, but at the front door as well, like the blue solid circle there, and then on to peer review, the editor's decision, and preparation and production for preparing to publish before eventually publishing. And I want to draw your attention to the quality checks solid circle there, because a lot of work goes on at publishers to stop publishing papers that don't meet quality control requirements before they go to peer reviewers, before they are assigned to a peer reviewer, and before that peer reviewer, a scientist, spends their valuable time on that manuscript, and before they go to editors as well. Here are the numbers from one publisher, the publisher that I work for. From October last year, we stopped 11,000 manuscripts at the front door at quality control checks because they did not meet our quality control standards. But of those 11,000, 2,300 had integrity problems. That's a publisher stopping paper mills, largely those 2,300 were from paper mills, stopping those paper mills from being successful, stopping those papers from being published, avoiding wasting peer reviewers, scientists' time through peer review. And I think that's a good indication of a publisher that did the right thing. And I know that's happening not only at Springer Nature, but at all the reputable publishers that you know, including Elsevier and ACS, whose representatives are also on this call. So that's the predatory behavior. What have we got for you that can help? We've got 2 courses, for example. Here's a free one that we launched in April last year, an introduction for researchers to research integrity. It's a 45-minute short course that you can take and learn about the good practices that you can adopt to publish your work successfully and avoid integrity pitfalls. If you want something more, and indeed more fancy, you can take the Nature Masterclass version, which is also free, launched in September last year, with 8 hours of learning, with 10 40-minute lessons, with a certificate at the end, calling on 7 experts in ethics and integrity, including the editor of a Nature journal, the chief editor, including Caltech's chief research policy officer, and including an elected member of the Committee on Publication Ethics. So those are 2 resources for you that you can use to skill up or to check that you're already doing all great things so that you can continue to do the right thing as a good researcher. And that's where I'll finish. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Krish.
You're welcome.
So I think we will come to question and answer session later. So Sarah, do you have PPT deck or?
Hi, Shripana. Yes, I have. Just doubling to check you can hear me okay?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Let me share my screen, if that's okay. Okay. Shripana, can you just give me a quick thumbs up? Can you see this in full screen mode?
Yes, yes.
That's amazing. Okay, thank you so much. So, hi everybody. It's really, really lovely to be here today to talk with you about how we can prevent predatory publishing practices. This is a topic that's incredibly important to Elsevier, so I'm delighted to be able to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing. And before I get into what it is that Elsevier is doing around predatory publishing practices, I think it's worth stopping and just going over some of the themes that Kutub had pulled out in his presentation to us earlier. Because the reason that this is so important to Elsevier and indeed to all publishing houses, including, of course, Springer Nature and ACS, is that it is incredibly damaging to you as authors, to your institutions, and to society in general. And as such, publishing houses have a very important role to play in nurturing trust in scientific and medical research and making sure that we really prevent some of those practices that we've already heard about. I'm not going to go through this slide in detail. Hopefully we can share them after this particular presentation. But what I would like to pull out to you is that many of the implications that you can see on this slide for science and society, for authors, for institutions, and for funding bodies who actually pay for this research to be done, many of them are the same. So, for example, it is as damaging for an author when they publish an article in a predatory journal and that predatory journal is removed from the internet and that article disappears, as it is also damaging for the institution or the funding body that paid for that research to be done. And equally, it's damaging for science in general and for society because that article is no longer available within the scientific literature. Researchers can't reference that. They are building on something which is no longer there. So I think it's really important as we go through the discussion today, just to remember kind of why it is that we're taking part in this panel discussion and just how damaging some of those practices can be to you as an author, but also to institutions and funding bodies and society in general. And sadly, the predatory publishing practices that we're going to be talking about today exist in a landscape which, as Chris has described very eloquently, is really undergoing a revolution. So when I started out as a publisher here at Elsevier 20 or so years ago, I would see very, very few publishing ethics cases come to me to resolve together with my editors. But what we've observed, certainly over the last 5, possibly 8 to 10 years even, are that the number of publishing ethics cases are increasing exponentially. And exactly as Chris showed, what that means is that article retractions are then increasing. Many of those are increasing due to deliberate, intentional research fraud, rather than for some of those honest errors and for authors who really do the right thing. One of the other observations that we would make is that we're coming across complex networks of what we call bad actors. So these are people who are infiltrating the scientific publishing system and are driving systematic manipulation of the editorial process. Some of those are paper mills, some of those are individuals who are acting for their own gain. And as authors, it's very important that you know that these actors are out there in the system. And unfortunately, sometimes they're looking to trip you up. The final observation that I would make is that the publishing ethics cases we see at Elsevier are increasingly becoming more complex. Sometimes they're more complex because they involve many, many papers. Sometimes they are more complex because there are multiple concerns or allegations that are being made about a particular paper. But what that means is that it requires specialist investigative skills and capacity to resolve them in a timely and a very transparent manner. So if we think about those challenges as they exist in 2024, it's really important that as publishers, we firstly detect any potential fraud or unethical behaviours before the acceptance and publication of those manuscripts in our journals to make sure that the scientific record remains pure, if you like. The second is that when we do discover concerns that exist after the publication of an article, we investigate, and if the scientific record needs to be updated, we do that in a transparent and a timely manner. And the final thing I think is incredibly important, and that is as publishing houses, we need to work with one another and also with the community, bodies such as yourself, but also including, for example, the STM Research Integrity Hub, and of course, the Committee on Publication Ethics, and to make sure that we share our own knowledge, our intelligence and technology to make sure that we can all resolve these concerns around predatory publishing practices and also those newer emerging unethical behaviours that we're seeing around bad actors and paper mills. So at Elsevier, we essentially take a 3-pronged approach to meet those challenges of research integrity. The first is that we have a specialist research integrity and publishing ethics centre, which brings together investigators with specialist skills, dedication, and capacity to work with our publishing teams and with our editors, as well as with the community. We also include technology and data-driven solutions that help us to surface some of those problems that Chris very eloquently showed in his slide deck before those manuscripts are accepted for publication. And finally, we do a lot of work around education and awareness programs. It's incredibly important for our internal community at Elsevier. So for anybody who touches a manuscript on its journey from submission all the way through to publication, people who really are in a good position to spot when there's a problem and to work with the editor of the journal and in some cases, the authors to resolve that problem. But it's also incredibly important to make sure that we educate and raise awareness in our external communities, and particularly for those authors who are perhaps starting out in their career and they're really looking for guidance to understand how it is that we can do the right thing as we publish our papers. And to that end, I do want to spend just a little bit of time talking about our work on policies, editorial guidelines, and training materials. And the reason I'm going to linger here is that I think these are the kinds of initiatives that you within the community may see. They're probably the ones that are most visible for you. So exactly as Springer Nature does, we have a number of training programs that you can undertake completely free of charge. We also, for example, visit institutions across the world to share some of the concerns that we have around research integrity and to promote some of those best practices that authors and peer reviewers in particular can undertake. One of the other things, though, that we think is incredibly important is making sure that all of us have policies and best practices in place that can help authors as you start to submit your manuscript through Editorial Manager, and that are also publicly facing and become documents of reference, if you like. So one of the things that we've recently done is to update our guidance and our policies around special issues, editing and management. Unfortunately, that is an area where we have seen some predatory publishing practices, where we have seen some paper mills, for example, becoming active. And so it's very important that our policies and our best practices really reflect the situation as it stands in 2024. And one of the final things to say on this slide is that it's incredibly important that as a community, we come together in events such as this, and also around things like STM's Research Integrity Masterclass, which takes place at least once every year and is a great opportunity for all players in the community to share some of that knowledge that they have gained over the course of the last 12 months. So as I move to my last slide and I wrap up, it's really a plea, I think, to everybody who's on this call today. I think making sure that we resolve the challenges around predatory publishing, around those emerging behaviours in research integrity, we need to come together as a community. This is not the responsibility of just one group, if you like, in the community. So what I would say is that whether you're an author, whether you're working as a peer reviewer, you're an editor, or even indeed if you're the leader of an institution or a funding body, or somebody who's responsible for policy in government. These are the kinds of issues that we need to have at the forefront of everything that we do going forward. And very much at Elsevier, we're looking forward to working together on all sorts of these initiatives. Thank you very much. I stopped sharing and hand back.
Yeah. So now we would like to hear about Diksha's view.
Thank you so much, INYAS, Shriparna, Nishan, Kutub, and Rajin. It had been a great experience so far. We had been engaging through program, and I'm so happy to see Rescue as a program and as a multi-partner consortia came up. It's very much needed. So my colleagues, Chris and Sarah, has already covered a significant part. So my job is relatively easy. So I can delve into specific things. So thank you so much, Chris and Sarah. I thoroughly enjoyed listening you in. I have been in India and, also studied here, then traveled through different parts. So when it comes, because I was just looking at that slide of India as a hub, right? And we really need to see things in perspective. If you see India as a demography with the largest youth population, and in the last 10 to 15 years, we have exponential growth in number of people doing research. and people aspire to publish. At the same time, government inclination also increased. A lot of smaller colleges and universities were also asked to publish. And then there's this race of, starting publishing a lot to get their career promotion and progression started. So that was the policy implication part that happened. And probably we did not understand at the time what it would mean to people. Maybe they did not have the right tools at their disposal. They don't have training. And at times, when we go out and interact with people, there is a significant population they are unaware of. How to select a good journal, or what is not really a good journal, what are the best practices. So these are the issues at hand, particularly more into developing nations. And that's where you saw numbers are increasing in more the geographies where there's more aspiring population to do more science. So that's one part. And the other thing we don't ignore is the demand and supply. There is a need, people need to publish, and then there are people who are providing the venue. And thinking through this complex problem, each publisher together or in their own capacity is, trying to bring out different tools. We are working together. So paper mill had been, a big disaster for all publisher. And, more you go into deep, more you can really dig things out. But that also helped us to put, really guardrails and make our systems more robust, especially at ACS. If you see, we are a not-for-profit publisher. And ACS journals are known for it, the highest quality peer review. And at times it even turn off the author, how much you ask and how many times I have to do. So at the risk of that, at time, not really a great author experience that way. But even then cases happen. And that's where a collective responsibility of everyone, let's say as a reviewer or as author or even as a reader. So sites like Retraction Watch, PubPeer, when they became more active and, when more readers started raising these issues and, a lot of these things getting into the attention. So if you see really the root cause of this whole problem and why we are getting such a big scale is a desire to publish. And when people have a desire to publish, it's also a collective responsibility of various stakeholders of STEM. How do we help, enable, or educate people to really select the right venue? So in that effort, we have ACS Author Lab as a free tool, as my other colleagues told. Each publisher tried to do, different outreach program, training program, awareness program. So ACS also offers ACS Author Lab. And it has a dedicated module about how to select a journal. And then our editors who are practicing scientists as well keep writing those editorial, keep organizing the workshops, and keep talking into the conferences really what to do versus what not to do. So when we select a journal, right, there are different aspects we think about it. Who are the people publishing into it? Is it listed into the major databases? And Kutub also showed a slide where, several journals were indexed into some database, but end up being predatory. So we can also think of multiple databases, not just one. Are they part of DOAJ? Because you also see most of these predatory journals tend to be open access. And that's where the business model lie. And somewhere it's defaming, open access business model as well. So these predatory journals typically tend to be open access, and that's where they have these aggressive marketing strategies, and they capture the vulnerabilities of author where, they have this desire to publish. And that's where if we can educate that early career or new authors who are possibly first time into the publishing thing, or they did not have prior exposure and did not have a peer group, we can really discuss how to select a journal, what makes like a good journal, or what are the best practices. So to me, awareness is a big program, especially to a segment. There, it is unintentional. Then it comes back to our policies. Is it really about the number or about the quality, right? And that's a really big debate. And then, a lot of things come into the play, then people talk about impact factor, citation, how many papers are really good enough. So it's really a very complex topic, but getting back everyone onto this aspect of predatory publishing, I would say one of the way to address it could be how to select a good journal. What are really attributes of a good journal? And here I see a lot of in my personal capacity as well. Being a research supervisor, it's important we educate our team members or students in our group, really help them identify what makes really a good journal, because that training goes really long way. And then this community effect and seeding effect, when they talk to their peers, when they talk to their friends, they have these discussions out. So we should start really talking more actively about these issues, and I think this is one way to go forward. The other thing I also wanted to highlight briefly, we partnered with DST about this ethics part. So we organized, let's say, some 20, 30 workshops in India, and work with thousands of PhD students. And I used to get amazed when people used to ask this question: what % of plagiarism is allowed? Right? So this is such an innocent, naive question, right? And when you say it's zero, and at times, but again, you go more in detail. Look, in experimental section, if you are the same person writing over, it's very hard to, remove certain procedures and things, and there are way. So I'm just trying to build that empathy of the people who do it without knowing what they are doing, and end up putting their scientific stake at a risk because they did it because they did not know it. I also read an article by UGC, a stakeholder, the one who manages really this care list. And I was surprised to see they review it every quarter. And I was just thinking, what happens to a journal that was in the list, but next quarter it is out? Do we mention it somewhere? It was not predatory until that time, because it is predatory now. But what happened when I published it when it was not predatory? Because this is a dynamic list, right? And so we have to really think about this dynamic, complicated system more from the perspective of helping authors, especially early careers, so that really they can maintain the sanity of their work without being really punished of something which necessarily they were not aware of. So I will pause here and hand it back to Shriparna.
Yeah, wonderful, Diksha. Thank you. So now I will hand over this session to Rajendra to carry on further. Rajendra, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sriparnaji. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
So yeah, great presentations and very informative, Chris, Sarah, and Diksha. I think you have covered many of the questions that we were having in mind, or some of the audience people are probably having. Diksha, you rightly covered also about why the number of predatory journals are increasing and why more of the youngers are going towards that. You also touched upon the promotion and so on, very important factors, I guess. So before I start some of the points or the questions for discussion, I would like to invite Nishant. I think he said he has one question. So Nishant, you can unmute and ask.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. So the question that I had in my mind was related to the open access drive that has been going on globally. So as we are aware that there is a global push towards open access. So, and this question is open to actually all the delegates here. In fact, especially our guests here. So, do you think that this is actually causing a rise in predatory publications, especially for the global south? Because anyway, when they see that they have to publish where there is an open access publication, they would also probably look for places to publish where the maybe the the processing charges are relatively lesser. So, do you think that also has some impact?
Yeah, Diksha.
So I would pitch it a bit differently. See, open access is happening is a one thing, right? And simultaneously, predatory publishing is happening. There could be a direct correlation, but also these could be two different phenomena which looks, connected together. So a lot of things are happening in the world parallelly. I mean, there is a ask mandate, and different parts in the world are looking for this, science accessibility, like for people, everyone should read it. So of course there are reasons. The other thing which should consider about this predatory thing. Why do people need to publish so much? And do we really talk about the archives? Isn't it if there is an awareness of getting your work online, right? So let's just step back quickly. Predatory journals are the one where peer review integrity is compromised. So do even we think and talk about the pointers where putting my work online in an archive would be a better option, which is also free. I don't have to pay anything. It is still available. And it is mentioned it's not peer reviewed. Versus to a part where it is into the predatory journal and which is also available to people. So we can say in some sense, because it's a business model which gives you upfront cash. So it is tempting to people really go and, press the nerve where they are really looking for. But somewhere it is also due to, we are not talking about the archives as an alternative options for people to really, get their work published.
Yeah, I think this is very important to understand. But still, I would, in fact, continue what Nishant said, that, in the open access, there are many good journals that we considered all good journals from different publishers. The article processing fee is really, really high. And for some of the young researchers, particularly we are talking here about the young researchers, and particularly from the universities or to the state universities where funding is really an issue even to conduct the research. And then when you conduct the research and publish with such high article processing fee, it may not be possible for many of the young researchers. So is there any practice being followed by the publishers where if they see that the quality of the work is really good, but the author is not able to pay the article processing charges, so whether they are helping, the publishers are helping young researchers in that way? Yes, Sarah.
Hi. Sorry, just lowering my hand. I think that's an incredibly important point, and actually one that is worth spending some time on. So one of the things that we make sure we do is to offer a range of journals that are both open access and hybrid in terms of their business model. So our hybrid journals offer authors the option to publish open access, but if they do not have the funds to publish open access, then they may publish completely free of charge under the subscription model. Now, that's something that we've been doing for nearly 20 years now, and we find that it works very, very well. We find that there is often a split, particularly amongst different disciplines. So some disciplines, for example, infectious diseases, very much flip themselves across to open access. Almost 100% of the papers that we publish in something like infectious diseases come out open access because that is really the preferred business model of that particular community. If, for example, though, we look at, say, nursing, that's a discipline where perhaps there is less funding for open access article fees, and therefore hybrid journals are incredibly valuable for that particular community. So for us, we found that a way of making sure that we can meet everybody's needs is to make sure that we have a range of journals with different business models, and also to make sure that those journals are at a variety of different impacts. So for example, if you're just starting out, it might be that you're looking to publish a case report in a journal that perhaps doesn't have an impact factor of 20 or 30. But equally, if you are doing a very large scale randomized clinical trial, which has really large impact for society, you are looking to publish that in a very, very high impact journal. So I think it is about making sure that you, as publishers, we have that range of journals. And also, and I think this has been referenced both by Chris and Diksha, that we also have services that help authors to find the most appropriate journal for their research, whatever niche their research might fit into.
Okay, great. So I think, Chris, I will come back to you with something different. So as some of you also touched upon, during the discussion, that the training and the awareness is important. And, most of the young researchers are like, mostly when we talk about PhD students, they are associated with professors. They are working with the professors, the scientists in different institutions and so on. And of course, they are then getting training in one way or the other about the ethics in publishing and the predatory journals and so on. But still, these predatory journals, if you see the number and if you see, I mean, every day we keep receiving n number of emails that you publish with us and blah, blah, so on. And if I'm not really careful, I may, consider that email seriously and can unknowingly submit there. So what do you think in your opinion, what are the particular reasons that, the number of predatory journals are increasing significantly in time, though as you also, all of you have rightly mentioned that there are many initiatives from your own publishers, and in fact, like UGC Care and other institutions like INYAS is also trying to, contribute in this direction with the help of IAP support and so on. But still these predatory journals are, increasing in number significantly. So what is your view I mean, what do you think, why it is the case and why it is not the other way around? So though Diksha, I think, touched upon briefly, but yeah, this is the open point for all of you. So Chris, if you want to start.
Thanks. So that's a really, you ask a why question.
Yes.
And you make some assertions about the growth in the number of predatory journals. I'd like to come back to reflect a little bit on the choices that authors make when they go and choose a journal to submit their work to. And in most of the research that I've seen on this, the main reasons that authors pick a journal are associated with reputation of the journal, and the word reach is often used, reach of the journal, which community that journal speaks to or is even part of. And those are the reasons why, in my understanding, researchers choose particular journals, and the concept of open access comes after that. Right, but then they go, okay, so I also need to do open access. Is there an option for this journal? Yes, I'll take it. So I think that's true. I sort of make the same sorts of decisions in all different areas of my life. Is this thing that I'm choosing kind of reputation enhancing, or does it fit with what I really want? And then I consider, yeah, sadly, I suppose, whether I can afford it, and sometimes I can't. So I think that's the authors behaving in a predictable way. I also think that publishers haven't been very good at making sure that authors all have an option with a legitimate publisher to publish their work. It's true of Springer Nature. We're turning away work that we'd rather not turn away, perhaps because we don't have journals in our portfolio that are quite right for that piece of work. And maybe we can do something about that. Certainly, I know we are at Springer Nature trying to find ways to address those gaps and give a publishing home for all good research. I mean, all good research. It doesn't have to be, it can be sort of incremental, small steps, or it could be a giant leap forward, like Nobel Prize winning work or whatever. But we really want to give all authors a home. And we regret it when we can't, but we recognize that perhaps other publishers like ACS or Elsevier, maybe the right choice for the author is actually there. So that was my reflections on authors and choice and the reasons why I think authors choose journals. I don't think it's got much to do whether it's open access or not. I think first it's about prestige and reputation and audience connecting with their communities. And I didn't just think that. I know that there's data that tells us that. I think predatory activities, to get onto the real nub of your question, predatory activities are whether it's paper mills, and that's my major concern, right? Or whether it's the things that you are putting in front of us rightly, predatory journals. I think the people behind those predatory journals or predatory paper mills are rational economic actors. I think they're addressing a market. And I think that market exists because of incentives, poor incentives, and a whole other, like a wealth of reasons across dimensions in the research communities. And if those reasons for creating a need, creating a market for those predatory paper mills and those predatory journals, if that market still exists, then they will be rational economic actors and continue to exploit it and continue to be predatory, right? And none of us want that. I mean, apart from the predatory paper mills, of course, they want it. And so I think that all of us who are actors in the research system, and yeah, that does include publishers, but it really includes researchers, research administration people, funders, agencies of government, and so on. I mean, there's a whole load of us who play a role in the incentive structure that researchers respond to. I think we need to act. In fact, we need to be united to act there. And I say that with a slight smile on my face because there is a campaign called United to Act, which is trying to bring together all of the stakeholders to address the unintended consequences of not good research incentive structures that result in a market for paper mills or a market for predatory journals. And maybe I'll just stop there. It's a job for all of us who care about science. And everyone on this call, right, cares about science. So that's where I'd focus attention if I were trying to make change happen and close down the predatory journals and close down the predatory paper mills. Hope that was useful.
Yeah, thank you, Charis. In fact, you have touched upon my second question, but before I go there, let me ask Sarah and Diksha, do you think that, as it is connected to the previous question, but do you think that the peer review time, the review process time is one of the factors of increasing the number of predatory journals? Because, all these legitimate, the reputed journals, the review process, normally it is around 3, 4, 4 months and so on. And probably these predatory journals are probably publishing very fast in a month or two. So do you think that this review process time can be one of the factors, or do you think it is not the important one?
I wonder if I can come in first, and then Diksha, I hand to you. I think one of the first things I'd like to say is I think we get what we measure. And that's just going back to Chris's previous point. So provided promotion structures, for example, continue to be based on the number of papers that somebody has published, then we will continue to see predatory publishing practices. And I think that does perhaps speak to your question around editorial processing times and peer review times. I think there is a natural temptation for anybody to try and do something if it feels easy and fast, and there is a product at the end of it that you can say, this is either going to go on my CV or perhaps it's going to go into, my ref list or something that kind of, allows me to benefit from that. So I think it's a natural temptation, if you like, to think very much of speed and ease. What I would say though that makes me question a little bit whether or not editorial speed really plays a part in this is that most research also takes time. You may have spent months, in some cases, perhaps you've spent over a year working on your piece of research. And so although you may want to publish that very, very quickly, to me, it then seems quite reasonable that editorial process, including peer review, detailed reports coming back that will help you to ultimately improve your work, that in itself takes time. And so I think I would push back a little bit and I would say, actually, imagine if you've spent 2 years of your life working on a piece of research that you're incredibly proud of, an additional 4 months going through a peer review process, a discussion with the editors, a revision. And perhaps if you're doing 2 revisions, you're tipping into the 6-month period. That to me feels as though it would be time well spent for your research. And so I think that also comes back to that shared responsibility as well. As an author, you also have to take a little bit of responsibility for maybe not going for that easy option, that fast option. But I mean, Deeksha, I don't know whether that resonates with you.
Yeah, I think wonderful.
Yes.
I
So
think because we have a bit less time, let me, though you already touched upon related to this question, what I'm going to ask. But
Rajendraji, I see one
yes.
hand raised.
Yes. So let me finish. So, like you said that there are many initiatives from publisher side. Academicians are also doing, many of these outreach activities for the awareness and so on. But what do you think if we both come together, like to have more of such activities to address these issues which are increasing with time? What do you think how we can collaborate and work together and try to address these issues of predatory journals? Maybe very brief answer.
So I can just chip in the other part what Chris and Sarah were mentioning. I think this goes back to asking that fundamental question: why do we need to publish? And if people start doing research with that question, why do we need to publish? I mean, publishing for promotion is one part, but also there is a responsibility to disseminate the work you have done in the most credible, authentic fashion.
Right.
If the fundamental goes back there, then people would maintain temptation of publishing it fast. People would maintain temptation of publishing it easy, because then you would have a purpose of publishing. So we should bring back the purpose of publishing to, that ethos and the morality and, why altogether we are scientists together. And then, of course, those are the systematic things, policy thing, how many paper, when, which journal impact factor can be addressed on the way. And of course, the awareness. I think it all starts with, talking about it, educating people, listening, and, having this open-ended Q&A.
Yeah, so that's where I think we can collaborate and can conduct more of such events to, make aware, particularly the younger researchers. Yeah, I think there is a question from Momita.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Dhaka. So I would actually will like to go back to what the Chris made this point on retraction. So yeah, and he already mentioned that the researchers are doing good and right by retracting their papers. But one of the best way to curb retraction would have been giving more power to peer reviewers, because peer review definitely is the backbone. Because we also already said that predatory publishing is one where they compromise on peer review. So since peer reviews, they're providing a service for free and willingly, and obviously it's for the betterment of science. So why have the publishers not made available tools to help peer reviewers to do their job better? Because for all these years, we have not seen much advancement on that side, that publishers giving us some things which would make us to do our job much better. So that's my question. Maybe I started from Chris because he made the point on detraction, but it's the question for all three of you. Thank you.
Wow, what a great question. Thank you, Mimita. Now's the time for that, right? Now's the time, because we have more powerful technology arrived in the last 12 months than we've ever seen before. It's about putting that technology to use in the right ways. So I guess you can imagine what I'm hinting at, right? I agree that doing peer review is a hard job. I also put it to us all that it's not just peer review that governs quality in the publishing process. In one of the slides that I showed, I had a dark circle that had quality control at the front door for publishers. All publishers do this. I'm sure Elsevier and ACS does this, just like Springer Nature does it. We have quality control at the front door. And that's a really important gate that if you want to call us gatekeepers. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that term, but if we're gatekeepers, then that's the gate. So our colleagues, our staff, our teams use their expertise and their tools to avoid wasting peer reviewers' time. And some of the tools we use there are traditional technologies, always used by a person. Now, some of the technologies we use there are AI technologies. Again, used by a person. No decision is made by technology. People make the decisions. And that's helping. It's helping us to give authors a good service, to give science a good service. It's also helping us to avoid burdening peer reviewers with work that they shouldn't be looking at because it doesn't meet the quality control standards we like. But imagine if we could also provide peer reviewers with a co-pilot. Imagine if we could provide peer reviewers with a co-pilot that was perhaps helping them identify the right parts of the article to focus on, or identify particular things that look like they really need attention, or perhaps even, I mean, goodness me, perhaps even enabling them to peer review in their own language, or their first language, let's say. Now we're at a point in technology development where the kind of support that you're just asking for, Mamita, is actually realistic and achievable. And I for one, am really, really excited by that. I think this is transformative. So thanks for the question, and there's my answer.
Well, I would also probably then kind of follow it a bit, first of all, because my question was anyway, for those papers which came through the initial check by the publishers, and then they were published. That's why they were retracted. So that's why I really wanted to highlight that it's need more empowerment to the peer reviewer. And then second point, I just wanted to say then, why as in publishers, to what extent you will then let the authors use, let's say, a Gen AI tools like OpenAI in writing? What would be ethical? So now the tools has already been for 2 years in everybody's hand, and we don't see much, let's say, ethical guidelines to what extent it is could be used, because you made the point that maybe English is not many of, like here, it's not our native, it's not our mother tongue. So if you use it responsibly, to what extent it would be ethical? So why this questions also need answers as well, I believe. But I will stop here and we can continue the discussion, yes, I guess.
Actually, may I make one important point there? Peer reviewers aren't going to catch the kinds of problems that Susanna Stoll identified, that Nicholas Smith identified, that Francis Arnold identified, and then retracted their papers. Those are only really the kind of problems that that subsequent research to confirm whether or not to repeat the experiments, right? Subsequent research is going to identify that, which may be done by the authors themselves and often is, or it may be done by other researchers in the community, and you just can't expect peer review to catch that. So
well, you can, because, for example, if you think about this recent Elkin 99 paper on the super room temperature superconductivity, so the community themselves came and did a lot together. So I think, I mean, again, it's like, and probably again, you made the point, community coming together, building the solution. So possibly, okay. Yeah, and I don't want to take up too much of time with my questions. There are other questions as well.
They were good questions. I don't want to take up too much time answering them, but they were good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so Diksha, you want to say briefly something?
No, just quickly, there are different types of frauds and ethical issue, and there are different levels of that. So there are some peer reviewer actually do. They inform editor when they, peer review a paper, they find several issues. So it happens behind the scene, not necessarily publicly. Everyone knows about it. So I can say at least at ACS, we have at times a lot of inputs and, concern expressed by a peer reviewer, where they express concern at that level where paper is out and editor do the right thing to do. When it comes like, the data manipulation or data error, I don't think anyone can unless the work is repeated. So that's where I think the Francis case comes in. And then there is another category of like paper mill, where you intentionally really articulate the whole paper, which is even like, the smartest IT tool maybe at some point will be able to do. So It is just, level of severity at what level, but I think community altogether. And if you see the journal's website like Retraction Watch or PubPeer, they are exactly what they are doing. When they are seeing the concern, they are, raising the concern, and a lot more people are now aware of, if they do any fraudulent practices, they can be in public shaming. So I think things are changing, but still a lot needs to be.
Yeah, Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted to come in actually on Deeksha's point, because I think that was a good point, very well made. So one of the things that I'm seeing is that where publishers can really add a lot of support, if you like, to the peer review process is indeed, as Chris was saying, making sure that we catch those papers that either are not compliant with the journal's guide for authors or the journal's policies before they are sent out for peer review, or indeed, to pick up on Deeksha's point, catching those papers that actually it's very, very difficult for one individual who perhaps sees one paper out of a large paper mill to catch and to kind of see those sorts of similarities. And I think that's something that publishers are working very, very hard on, is making sure that we actually improve those technologies so that we quality control as those manuscripts are submitted. Because I think the one thing that we hear constantly from our reviewers is that they are experts at reviewing the science and they want to be able to review the science. What they are not experts at is reviewing for compliance with policies or for spotting things like paper mills, which are often incredibly well-written papers with data, so they don't really conform to those paper mill papers we might have in our mind that we're using a lot of problematic phrasing, for example. A lot of them are not like that at all. They're very, very sophisticated pieces of research. So I think it's important that we make sure we support our reviewers in doing that, and that we only ask them to do what they're good at. But I think you raise a good point. As publishers, we need to be better at building those technologies so that when you are reviewing a paper, you are considering some of the questions that Chris raised, like, where should I spend my time on this paper? If I wish to annotate inline, for example, I can actually do that without having to write sort of, a separate report and then say, line 30 on page 10, this is what I want you to do. So that's where we're spending a lot of our time and investment, is really thinking about, as a reviewer, how do you read the paper? How do you want to annotate the paper? How do you want to come back? And I think doing those kinds of things is incredibly important.
Great. Yeah, I think we had a great discussion. Before I hand over to Sriparna, I just want to request all three of you to give one very brief message to the rescue team, the team which INYAS has built in collaboration with many other academies and with support of IAP, to contribute in this direction to address some of the issues in these predatory journal related stuff. So if you can give a very brief message to rescue team for the future. With this, I will then end and hand over to Sriparna.
I can make my point and can go because I have to leave early.
Yes,
So
yes, we know.
I'll ask, you educate 5 people and ask them to educate to 5 people. And that's the only way to deal with this.
Great. Chris, Sarah, yeah.
I'm happy to go next. I absolutely love that, Deeksha, because frankly, my point was going to be it's all about community. Research integrity is a shared responsibility, and it's important that all of us take that responsibility and accountability for it.
Great.
Cool. Hey, I really like Rescue. Rescue, you're doing the right thing. I think that I would ask that everybody knows what the right thing is, right? Especially when we're talking about science. So I'd ask that Rescue asks and encourages and supports researchers, young researchers, do the right thing.
Great. Thanks to all of you. I hand over to Sriparna now. Thanks. Great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, for giving us time. And so finally, we are at the end. Um, I would like to acknowledge Suvira Srivastav for connecting us to Chris, Dr. Anders Carlson for connecting us to Sarah. And also we are thankful to our senior academy, Indian National Science Academy. and our partner academy, that is National Young Academy of Bangladesh, and of course INYAS office. Ananya is there for all kind of support. I mean, she's at the back end, she's supporting from the back side, but she's of enormous help to us. And I think this is just a start of a discussion. So we have more thing to discuss, and probably we have to work together. So we will come back to all of you if we need any help, any suggestion. So thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good day. Have a
Yes,
good day.
we are on perfectly on time. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Ananya, you can stop live streaming and you can close this session.